Before we begin, I want to give a big thank you to all of my patrons. You guys are the reasons I keep making content. Thank you guys for all the support. And if you like this video, please consider subscribing because it really helps the channel out. And it also, if you click the like button, it tells me to make more videos like it, so I'll keep making stuff like this. Welcome to the Twisted Tentacle Inn. I am your innkeeper, and today we're going to be starting our discussion for all of the subclasses in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. So this video series is not an in-depth look at each subclass within the Tasha's Cauldron of Everything book, more of my first impressions on each subclass, so my ideas and thoughts on this can change in the future once I get to play these or play alongside someone who's playing these. And in today's video, I'll be starting off with the Artificer subclasses. I'll go over each one in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything and give you my thoughts at the end as to where I think they belong in the tier list. So one thing to keep in mind is I do believe the Artificer is a mechanically weak base class, probably one of the weakest in the game, and it is more dependent on its subclasses than any other class to determine its flavor and power level. So the rankings of these subclasses is more important than probably most of the other subclasses within this book. Alright, so without wasting any more time, we're going to start off with the Alchemist. Starting off with the bonus spells, the Alchemists kind of get a weird mix of utility, healing, and damage. But none of the spells that they get stand out as particularly good, except some of the healing ones like Healing Word and Death Ward. The third level ability, Experimental Elixir, it's honestly too random to count on during an adventuring day. To make an elixir that's not random, you have to use a spell slot of first level or higher, which you have a very limited amount per day because you're a half-caster. So to be worth spending a spell slot, the ability really needs to be useful. And the only ones I find useful within the elixirs are Flight, Transformation, which honestly is kind of situational, but it can be useful, and Healing. And even that one is so-so. The others offer like combat-based bonuses, but since it takes an action to drink the potion, those bonuses aren't really worth wasting around for, so I don't like any of them. The fifth level ability, Alchemical Savant, basically adds your intelligence modifier to a heal roll or a damage roll from a spell. This one, talk about not being synergistic. You can't even add it to your elixir's healing bonus. And for a fifth level, a maximum of +5 is honestly pretty laughable. The ninth level ability, Restorative Reagents, is a little bit better. You can add 2d6 plus your intelligence modifier when you heal with your elixir, which is okay. But at this level, honestly, it's kind of lackluster compared to other characters who get their abilities at ninth level. The ability to cast Lesser Restoration, though, several times per day, that one's a little bit, better, but doesn't make up for the other lackluster portion of their 9th level ability. The 15th level ability, Chemical Mastery, it grants you resistance to acid and poison damage and immunity to the poison condition. You can also cast Heal and Greater Restoration once per day without using a spell slot. Both of these spells are pretty nice, but honestly, at 15th level, it's just not nice enough to warrant choosing the subclass over another one. So unfortunately, the Alchemist is the weakest of the Artificers by a long shot. Honestly, it's too bad because this one could have been really cool, and I really love the flavor of an Alchemist, someone who's kind of working with potions and things like that. But it being part of the Artificer class kind of takes away a little bit of that mystery for me. And they have a lackluster combination of the weak base class abilities and weak subclass abilities. So it's just honestly a bit of a dud. They're not good generalists. They're not good healers. They're not good at damage. They're not good at battlefield control. I just can't wrap my head around what role the designers intended for the Alchemist to fill within a party. So, this one's kind of just leaves me scratching my head, to be honest. Next up, we have the Armorer. This is the new one that was introduced in the book. All the others were actually introduced in the Eberron Rising from the Last War book. So, starting with the bonus spells that the Armorer gets, they're pretty good. Magic Missile is nice force damage. Mirror Image is a great defensive spell. Lightning Bolt is a great way to do lots of damage. And Fire Shield is a concentration-free, awesome defensive spell that also deals damage. Greater Invisibility is nice and one of the better utility spells in the game. And of course, Wall of Force, which is a battle ender. So really good bonus spell selection, already starting off great. Much better than the Alchemist. The third level ability is Arcane Armor. This is kind of like their main shtick. So you can use the armor that you wear as your spellcasting focus, which is pretty awesome. Takes an action to don or doff that armor, no matter what type of armor it is. That is huge. You get to choose from 2 types of special benefits from your armor, so you get to select when you make your magical armor if it's going to be Guardian or Infiltrator. So the Guardian lets you hit with Thunder Gauntlets and gain temporary hit points. The Infiltrator is more like a stealthy one, so it lets you shoot lightning from your chest or your fist, and you can also become more stealthy. Both abilities let you use your intelligence modifier to hit and damage instead of strength or dexterity. They're both really good abilities, but in terms of flavor, neither one appeals to me, honestly. And I know some of you really like this subclass. To me, this one feels more like a superhero than a D&D character or a magical fantasy character. I just can't wrap my head around making this fit into the theme of Dungeons and Dragons at all. More on that in a second. At level 5, you get extra attack, which, for a melee-based character, is really nice. Or not just melee, a combat-based character. At 9th level, you get the armor modifications. So here, this one lets you count parts of your armor as separate magic items for the purposes of infusing them with your Artificer infusions. Plus, you can infuse 2 more items than other artificers of the same level. So now you can have even more magic items that you've created, as long as 2 of those items are part of your armor. It's a strong ability in campaigns where magic items are rare. It's a little less powerful in campaigns where magic items are more common. Now, keep in mind that even though this ability lets you make more magic items, it doesn't increase how many magic items you can attune to, so that's an important factor to keep in mind here. At level 15, you get the Perfected Armor ability. If you choose the Guardian Armor, you can use your reaction to pull a creature toward you if they fail a strength save, and then you can attack them as part of that same reaction. That's okay. It's a strong ability. It allows you more battlefield control, so that's nice. If you choose the Infiltrator Armor, when you hit them with your chest laser or gauntlet laser, or whatever gauntlet lightning, they're going to have disadvantage on their attacks for the round, and then the next attack against them is going to have advantage. This one would be good if it wasn't a level 15 ability. Personally, I think the Guardian Armor for this level is a little bit better than the Infiltrator one. Not by much. So, final thoughts on the armor. I'm going to be honest, it's my least favorite of all the new subclasses in the entire book. The armor is a sort of D&D Iron Man, and personally, I think it goes way too far in terms of flavor. The abilities are fine, and some of the abilities are pretty strong, but the whole rocket launcher gauntlets and that kind of stuff, it just doesn't sit well with me. It takes me out of my immersion in the game, to be honest. I can't stop thinking Iron Man whenever I see the subclass, and anyone that's made a character online that I've seen pretty much makes Iron Man when they make this character, which really takes me out of the subclass. And I just can't envision a character that's an armorer that actually fits in within the fantasy theme. So it just doesn't sit well with me at all. If you've made an armor that does fit well within the D&D mold, let me know in the comments. I'd love to see it. I'd love to change my mind about this subclass, but as of right now, it's my least favorite in the entire book. All right, next up is the Artillerist. The bonus spells for the Artillerist are very similar to the ones that the armorer gets, but I think the Artillerist beats it out by a little bit, mostly because they have a few more useful spells. I think the Artillerist bonus spells are the best of all the Artificer subclasses that are out right now. Shield, for example, that's a fantastic spell. Fireball is always nice to have, and then Ice Storm is great as battlefield control with some really nice damage thrown in. And of course, Wall of Force is a spell I would almost always take if I'm able to. At 3rd level, the Artillerist gets the Eldritch Cannon ability. Like the armor, you get to choose a type of cannon that's going to determine what abilities it has. The Fire Cannon, that one's mediocre. First of all, I'm not a fan of cone spells at all. This one is a 15-foot cone, so it's got a very short range. It deals 2d8 fire damage, which is a highly resisted damage type. and the creature you're attacking can save for half damage. The good thing is that it's not a spell, so magic resistance doesn't apply against it, so there's a plus there. The Force Cannon is much better. This one is not only better damage type, but the range is fantastic at 120 feet. Sure, it only hits one target, but with a 15-foot range, the fire cannon is more than likely going to hit maybe one, maybe two targets. So not a huge difference there. The good thing is that the Force Cannon allows for an attack roll instead of a saving throw, which means you can benefit from critical hits and some tactical maneuvers that will grant you advantage to hit. So you're more likely to hit with that one. Finally, the Protector Cannon. That one grants temporary hit points to allies within 10 feet of it. This one is probably the worst of the lot. The temporary hit points are helpful, especially if you move, your cannon to sit near the frontline combatants that are going to be taking damage every round. So it'll always have something to add on to. But, but realistically, it's the one that I think you'll use the least of the three, because if you're in combat, you're almost always going to have a target to damage. Whereas healing, you won't always have someone to heal. If the fight's going your way, chances are that even though you're granting temporary hit points, there may be rounds where you're not going to be using the cannon at all. So something to think about there. And the nail in the coffin for this cannon is when you reach 9th level, it doesn't scale like the others do. And we're going to get to that in just a second. Now, as far as the cannon ability, I do like that overall it's a bonus action to use the cannon, so it frees up your action to do other stuff in combat. At level 5, you get the Arcane Firearm ability. Basically, you can make a magic rod or wand and use it as your arcane focus, granting a bonus of 1d8 to 1 spell's damage roll when you use the wand with it. This one's got cool flavor, but honestly, it falls a little bit short mechanically. Adding 1d8 damage to a spell is not great. You're half caster, so you're already behind when it comes to the spell damaging department. So adding that 1d8, especially at level 5, it's not going to be a tremendous increase in your damage output. So, At level 9, you get the Explosive Cannon ability. So this is a boost to your original cannon, but only if you choose the Fire Cannon or the Force Cannon. The Protector Cannon does not get a boost at all. So here, you're adding to the damage output of your other two cannons, but you're not adding to the healing or the temporary hit point power of the Protector Cannon. So as soon as you hit level 9, that Protector Cannon becomes even worse compared to the other two. So, and then the other ability is that you can explode your cannon to deal a little bit more damage, but it's only 3d8 force damage, and the creature's hit can save for half. The radius is only 20 feet, so it's something you can use in a pinch, I guess, but it's not really going to be anything that's tremendously impactful. Finally, at 15th level, you get the Fortified Position ability. This one's pretty cool. So you and any ally within 10 feet of the cannon get the benefits of half cover, which is really nice. It's really good as far as a defensive ability. The other part of the ability allows you to have two cannons at once, which is freaking fantastic. This is so good. You can nearly double your damage output each round by having two cannons out. And I mean, honestly, this ability is really appropriate for its level, and I think it is a game changer. And finally, we have the Battlesmith. I'm not going to go too much into detail because I have an entire video series. I think it's like 10 videos about the Battlesmith specifically. So check those out. I'll put them in the comments in case you're interested. Let's start with the spells. So I'll briefly just go over them. The spells are pretty hit or miss, honestly, for the Battlesmith. Shield, as we talked about, is really nice. Aura of Vitality is pretty nice. Fire Shield is great, and so is Banishing Smite. But all the other Smite spells are probably spells that I'll never cast as a Battlesmith. So clearly the Artillerist wins in the bonus spells department. The Armorer also has a pretty good spell list, and so both of those beat out the Battlesmith in terms of, better spells as their bonus spells. But the Alchemist still comes in dead last in that spell selection department. So most of the Battlesmith's abilities revolve around a Steel Defender. This is like this mechanical creature that helps you in combat. It's a great defensive and offensive boost. So it helps you be in the front lines, and you can be a pretty nice tank or a pretty nice healer. You could also be a pretty good damage dealer. So you have some options as a Battlesmith. And then you also get proficiency with martial weapons, which is great already, but then you also get to use your intelligence modifier to hidden damage, which is even better. So you actually can do some pretty decent damage and keep up at least somewhat with the frontline combatants of your group. Also, the Steel Defender got a little bit of a boost in Tasha's versus the Eberron book, which is where this subclass was first introduced. So gets a little bit of a power boost, but it's not a tremendous amount, but it's still nice to get a little bit of a power boost. At 5th level, you get extra attack, which we talked about with the armor. Is a great thing to have if you're going to be a frontline fighter or combatant, and it helps you keep up with the other martial classes. And even though your hit points aren't good, your Steel Defender and then access to some spells like Shield will help you stay alive while you're in the front lines as well with them. At 9th level, you get the Arcane Jolt ability. This one lets you do extra damage or heal when your Steel Defender hits a creature or when you hit a creature. And you can use this a few times per day, which is nice. I really like the ability. I like that it gives you the option to either deal extra damage or heal, so you have some, leeway there as to how you want to maneuver your combat tactics. That's pretty cool. And so if your party needs some help, you can heal them. If you need a little extra damage to defeat a tougher enemy, you can do that instead. So that's really nice. At level 15, you get the Improved Defender. This one gives you a boost to damage to your Arcane Jolt. It goes up to 46. And your Defender also gets a +2 bonus to armor class. And a new way to deal damage kind of when it does its defensive ability. This one's okay. I think, honestly, the Artillerist has the best level 15 ability. Not that it matters much, because most players or most D&D groups don't ever get to that level, so you may never see this ability in play anyways. So I do love the Battlesmith because, honestly, unlike the Alchemist, the abilities for the subclass greatly enhance the base class abilities, and it makes the Battlesmith a really versatile character, which I really like. It's my favorite Artificer subclass, and I think that it and the Artillerist are both kind of a perfect demonstration of what the Artificer can be. The Alchemist is the one that's a huge disappointment. It honestly makes me really sad to say it. I just don't think it's a subclass that I'll ever play. There are suboptimal characters that are still fun to play, but the Alchemist is so suboptimal that I don't think I would ever have fun playing it, to be honest. I mean, there's a difference between being suboptimal and just completely, just terrible. And I'm sorry I'm being so harsh on this subclass, but I just don't see any redeeming qualities, to be honest. And finally, the new subclass introduced in the book. The armor, it's mechanically great, but I'll also never play that one. I just don't think I'd enjoy playing an Iron Man clone in a D&D setting. And playing a character like that, or even being at a table with someone playing that kind of character, would ruin the entire experience for me, and I just would not want to play at that table or that campaign. So I don't know, maybe one of you guys can change my mind. Again, if you have some great idea for an armor that would fit into a D&D fantasy setting, let me know, because I'd love to hear it. Alright, so based on my first impressions, my rankings for the Artificer subclasses found in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything are: bottom tier, we've got the Alchemist, and the Artillerist with the Protector Cannon. For mid-tier, I have the Armor Infiltrator and the Artillerist with the Fire Cannon. And then top tier, I have the Armor Guardian, as well as the Artillerist with the Force Cannon. And then top tier would be the Battlesmith. The topmost tier would be the Battlesmith. And that does it for my first impressions for the subclasses for the Artificer in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Again, these are my first impressions, so my mind might change on these later on. If they do, I will be sure to bring it up and mention it in a future video. I do hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you did, please consider clicking the like button. As I mentioned before, it helps tell me that you want more videos like it. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there in the comments down below. I've been your Innkeeper from the Twisted Tentacle Inn. Check in anytime. I'll talk with you then.